In the modern day of web design, it's impossible to ignore flexbox concepts. Let's look at all the utility classes in Tailwind related to flexbox using the simple example of services listing. We have 3 services listed with an icon and a label each. The markup has 3 divs with an SVG and a span each. To stack these divs next to each other on the page, we need to set the display property of the parent div to flex. In Tailwind, that's simply a class name flex. Let's set it to the parent. And since the default direction is flex row, everything is immediately in the row direction. Now to align these items in the horizontal direction, we can use the justify utility classes. Justify start is the default, so everything is aligned to the start of the parent container, that is to the left end. We could do justify end to push it to the right end of the container. So if you refresh, now they're all to the right. Justify center puts them in the center of the container, and then there is justify between, which is quite useful when you want to add maximum space between all the items. There is no space on the ends. There's also justify evenly, which adds enough space or equal space at the ends as well. If I add a background to this div, you'll be able to make out better. So let me add a BG slate 200. So you can see the amount of space between and at the edges are the same. There's one last class, which is justify around, which adds half the space in the ends as much as there is between. Okay, let me change this back to justify center. Now this was about horizontal alignment, and of course we don't want them to stick to each other, so you can add some fixed gap using the gap utilities. These again work very similar to the space X utilities that you saw, but gap works with flexbox and grid, so you can add gap of 4 here. Alright, I will remove the background color, and to make it look better, let me just give a border to all of these individual, sorry, not here. Let me give a border to all of these individual services by selecting them all at once using the class border, and then border slate 300 maybe. And also I'll give a padding of 3, that's 12 pixels to all of them. I think I need to remove this BG slate 200. And yes, let me also add some rounded corners. So select them all again and rounded LG. Alright, that looks much better. Now let's say we have some additional text in one of the items. Let's say we add a paragraph and it says some more details. Let me just give this a small text size and a light gray font, text gray 500. Yeah, now notice that these 2 items have also stretched to align with the longest item. So this is the default behavior again. But to change this vertical sizing and alignment, we can use the classes called items. So this in CSS is same as align items, that's the CSS property. So you could just use items and then align it the way you need. Item stretch is the default. Item start will make sure all the items align only at the start of the container, which is the top. And items end will align them all at the end. Item center will align them in the center, vertically center. So this utility class is quite useful whenever you want to align an image on the left, text on the right, or an icon on the right and some text on the left. We'll be using this a lot. Now notice something. If I increase the height of this parent div, so to let's say H150 or something, all the items align at the center of this div. Let me also add the background back again so you can notice this. Yeah, so you see the items have aligned to the center of the div vertically. So this solves the universal problem of a developer, how to center a div. So if you add a div and add these 3 classes, flex, justify center and item center to the parent div, you have your div in the center. Alright, now let me remove these 3 classes and even the height and the background color for now. And let me add another item here. Let me just copy paste this and add it here. Now notice what happens. Everything tries to fit into the same row. Things might shrink, but somehow they try and fit in one single row. That's the default behavior. But if you want to change that, you want to allow the items to take enough space and wrap instead, you can change this by adding flex wrap utility class to let the items wrap. And now if you refresh, they take up as much space as needed and push the other items, continuing to wrap to the next line. Okay, I'll remove this for now and remove the additional item as well. And this was about the row direction. What if we want them to align in the vertical direction differently? We can set the direction to flex col. Sorry, that's flex col. Now the direction is in column. And now to change the alignment of the items, let me first increase the height of the container so you'll be able to notice. And also add the background again. So now you notice that all these items are again sticking to the start of the container in the vertical direction. So to change this, when the flex direction is called, you will have to use the justify classes to align them vertically. So justify start is the default, justify end will push them to the end of the container, justify center will stack them in between, and once again around evenly, they all work the same. So let me leave it at justify center for now. And to control their sizing in the horizontal direction, you might have guessed, now we use the items for the same. So items stretch is the default, item start will restrict them to the start of the container, items end will push them to the end, and items center will align them all vertically center. And of course, you might have noticed that the gap works in the vertical direction now instead of horizontal direction. So that's about most of the utility classes available for a flex container. This might be confusing in the beginning, but the more you build, the more familiar you will get with these. Let's look at the available utility classes for the flex items individually in the next video.